We are now recording.
You're live, okay. So we're gonna do bids and infrastructure first. And then if any action develops that has to roll forward to officers, well, that's why we have in essence a joint committee, or one following the other. Okay?
All right, so I think we have,
Yeah, let the record show that we have a quorum
Oh, shit.
for bids and infrastructure, and we're turning this over to Dominic. And don't forget to speak up. You got one mic in here, it's way over there on
the first
the
thing
camera.
you should look at is we have 21 places in the village where the sidewalks are in dire condition. They're being twisted and elevated by tree roots. So we're going to address that as the first proposal. We have two bidders for the first proposal of the paving. One is the lady, the paving lady, and the second is Atlantic Southern. Looking at them both, the deciding factor, I feel, is that we've used both of them in the past. Both of them work very, very well with Donald and so forth. However, the deciding factor, I feel, is that the price difference is different. Paving Lady is in at $6,400. Atlantic Paving is in at $5,050, which is $1,350 less than the paving lady. So my recommendation.
Don, before you make a recommendation, I have some additional analysis that
Sure.
I think is pertinent. If you look closely, you'll see that in both proposals, the square footage is slightly different. One is 523 and one is 700. There are two reasons for that. One is that paving lady estimator was somewhat more generous with his measurements, how far out from the crack he wanted to fix. And in another case, when I went out the second time with the second vendor, we missed a couple spots. So how to make it apples and apples, I created a per square foot price. Basically just dividing the amount of square feet into the total price to come up with square footage. So paving lady comes out at $914 per square foot, and Atlantic Southern comes in at $965 per square foot, roughly equal. Now, this was done some time ago. At any rate, the total square footage that will actually be repaired will be more than both of these estimates because there's going to be more cracks. We're going to have to go over this area again before the actual work. There'll be a change order. Other than that, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at very similar square footages. I'm not unhappy with the work quality of either of them. It's really 6 one, half dozen of the other, as far as I can tell you.
But I think for this application, we have to go by what they've turned in as square footage and price.
Right, but the total square footage in reality is theoretical because by the time we actually set up this job, regardless of which one we pick, it's going to wind up being more anyway because there's going to be more spots that we're going to catch before we do the job. So the real determinant is the square footage price. How much we're paying for square footage.
But the idea is, this is what we bid on.
Yeah,
Barbara?
Donald just said, this is what we want to do, but there'll be more added to it. Did you not just say that?
Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah, but there'll be
So
more
it's
always
not
added.
the
is.
complete job.
So
Yeah.
what I want to ask you is, Donald came up with $965 a square foot for
For Atlantic Southern.
Atlantic and $914 a square foot for paving lady. So the square footage is cheaper on
On
paving lady,
paving.
am I right?
Correct.
So that's the way we can go.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's an easy thing to do.
Dominic?
Yes. David?
One thing I didn't notice, and maybe it's to be taken for granted, in those cases where the initial cause is root damage, will both, whoever we select, put up, obviously they'll cut the root, but will they put up a root barrier because roots have a funny habit of growing back, so that we don't repeat the same problem a year from now.
The answer is, Dave, is yes. They do put a barrier at the root that they cut out. Usually, the barrier is another guava asphalt. No matter what you put, and there are specific root barriers that can be used. Doesn't matter. The root's going to find its way around eventually. You know, under, over, it's going to find its way through.
We can't go around killing all the foliage, but
Yeah, that's it.
But they're all,
Usually-
they're tripping hazards, and that's,
usually you see a statement in the proposal.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a statement in either proposal. You can say, yes, they're gonna do it,
Not in
but
there.
if it's not in writing,
not there.
maybe they're not gonna do it.
Well,
And will there be any additional cost?
Well, the answer to the additional cost is no, but yeah, that makes sense. I can put it in future proposals. Just make sure that there's a root barrier and how roots will be treated.
Usually it's coated, special chemical, blah, blah, blah. It's more, it's not something to just be tossed off
Right.
without concern. Or you'll be repeating the same thing a year from
I
now.
mean, typically, the vendor will hit it with some garland, which is a root, keeps the root from growing again in that particular spot. I'm usually there watching them do that. If you look out at, right at our front gates, we just cut down some maple trees. When you see that, it looks like orange spray paint, that's the garland. But it's a matter of, kind of being there when we do the job.
Just
Well, I
a thought.
think,
Yeah, no, you put that in.
Dan,
yes.
my opinion is before we vote on this, I think that we should have a different proposal with everything in it, like David said, because if you say they're going to do it, and then we have this, this proposal, they can say, well, we didn't really agree to it.
Well,
I don't
that's
go
good.
by, I know they're reputable, as you said, but even reputable people make mistakes.
And I agree. As much as you can put in a contract or an RFP, you should. But there's also management oversight, and that factors in. It's basically me out there on my sun hat watching these clowns to make sure they do the right job. That's always going to be the case. That's a constant. But I agree. This is something we can put into future proposals.
Thank you.
Ed?
Donald, you said, I'm sure there are going to be more. Okay, and this is a proposal.
Right.
I definitely am in agreement that what you just discussed should be in the contract, although we've dealt with these people before. But I think you should have a max. In other words, you're submitting a contract that's between $5,000 and $6,000, and it turns out to be $12,000.
Yeah.
I think there should be a delineation that if it goes X dollars above this, you really need another proposal.
So Ed, you're talking about a not to exceed.
But gentlemen,
Right.
If this committee
this
wanted,
is what was bid on.
yeah, exactly right.
21 places, and the prices are there.
Right.
6,400
Look,
and whatever.
When I tell you that,
Well, I
when I tell
misinterpreted
you,
what you said. You
No,
said,
no.
I'm sure there's going to be more. It
Right.
sounded like it's going to be added in here, Don.
You
That's
can-
all I'm
It
saying.
won't be in
Yes, he
here,
did
it'll be
say
Right.
another proposal.
it would be in a,
So
it
we're
would
gonna
be in
deal
a,
with this proposal
Right.
before we deal with
Okay.
another proposal.
All right.
Ed, just to answer your question, it would indeed be a change order if it was any significant amount. In which case I would bring that directly to Dave, and if it's under $2,500, Dave can sign off on it. But it won't even be close to that. I just tell you that because at almost every day that we do paving, we always find more, because these things are growing as we speak. So, is it gonna be double? No, of course not. I would bring it back to you if that was the case. I would make it another proposal. So,
Okay.
We're talking about minor stuff that we catch in the interim.
So just for finalizing, is this particular proposal by both vendors going to be amended before it's approved, that it includes what we just discussed?
I can amend anything you want,
Barry.
absolutely, in a final contract.
I think Ed is calling for a not to exceed
Right.
language in
Right,
there
David's right.
to avoid this
Right.
contractor fishing expedition. I know exactly what you're
That's
talking.
right.
Oh, well, while we're here, let's do that, let's do that.
In this case, the fisherman, in this case, the
That's
fisherman.
what I'm getting at, and also, it's a little difficult to hear, but I think it's a valid point.
Yeah.
What David brought up is not included in the contract.
Right.
And I think if we're gonna approve it,
I said that.
I think it should be in the contract, because it's what's in writing that counts. It's not,
And in this particular case, the fisherman is Donald.
I can't hear you.
In this particular case, the fisherman is Donald. If there's anyone going out looking for extra work, it's me. That's my job at all. So if I find something
That's not what he's saying.
significant.
That-
That's not what he's
I
saying.
think we're talking apples and oranges.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're talking, I'm not questioning your ability to
Right.
amount, watch the job. What I'm saying is, if the protection that David brought up is not in the contract, I just feel it should be in the contract, because that's an additional cost that they didn't count on it.
Don,
Yeah.
what we used to put in contracts and stuff is not to exceed 10%, or some kind
Yeah,
of percent.
exactly-
That's
exactly
all
right.
you put in there. And if it's a certain number, like you're saying, you're allowed to 2,500 or something, anything over that.
And that could go into the final version of the
It's the same
contract, and I
thing
agree, I
like
think
this.
it's a good idea.
Listen to
When you
him.
say the
We're
final-
talking about two different things at the same
He's
time,
talking about the barriers.
right? We're talking about root barriers,
That's fine.
and we're talking about not to exceeds.
Right.
Those two
Two
things.
separate, two separate.
All right. Noted, we'll do.
What,
The,
what I'm not understanding,
You gotta raise your hand.
He did.
you will have an
No, he
ongoing
was-
problem regardless of what you do, and regardless of the root situation and what you put on there, even if they chop it, because one, the soil underneath the asphalt is predominantly sand. There are no heavy rocks there to act as natural barriers. The root systems that you have, that you chop the root and the plant is not done. They will find another area to spread out and they will go around. So the condition here that we see here is a condition that we get every year, all the time. So the only thing that you can do is rip it up, put new asphalt in, put the retardant that you use to kill whatever root that you have there, seal it up, and then keep your fingers crossed that the following year or 9 months later, you'll have less to work on. But this is a continuing problem, and you'll always have it. There's nothing you can do, so you pick out the guy that gives you the best deal for the least price, and we move on. It's just very simple.
So I'm taking two directions from the committee. One is to include a 10% not to exceed on the final contract, and the other is to put in some language regarding root barriers in the final contract. Sure. Done.
So the only thing you can do today is pick a contract.
Yeah.
what was that, Dominic?
The only thing you can do today is pick a contract.
And then it has to come back
No.
revised?
No.
No.
No. So if you approve it today, we're working on the assumption that those two items we just discussed will be in the final contract?
In a new contract.
No, no,
Rest
I'm
assured-
talking about what you're approving right
You can rest
today.
assured that Donald always does what he's told. If I tell you I'll put it in there, I'll put it in there.
There's also nothing, when they rip that up, there's nothing under there that's going to be, oh, wow, look at what we discovered, it's going to cost, it's just, they've been doing it for so long that it's just a rip out, clean up, kill the root, put a barrier of chemical in there and fill it up, and that's it, and hope that some other place won't be as costly.
And just let me give you a scenario, let me give you a scenario of something that actually happened that would be a significant change order in this particular line of work.
Right.
Over in Southampton, we had a major root damaged piece of roadway. They gave us a price. When they dug it up, they found that the road bed wasn't normal, not bed, but the asphalt was not 3 or 4 inches. It was 12 or 18 inches, which was a significant amount of work. It was doubling that particular piece of work in price. I said, cut the job, give me a proposal, and I brought it back to the committee and said, look, I got a problem. We couldn't possibly have known this. And, it's pretty perfunctory. Okay, good. And off we go.
I have
So,
only one other question.
more material, more work.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have only one other question. You've used both these vendors you used both these vendors before,
We have.
and when you look at the prices, roughly it's a 20% difference. And I would question from your experience, that's a big percentage for a small job from two vendors. I mean, is it the same materials, is it the same?
Well, Ed, if you probably missed this part at the beginning, but if you give a little bit more analysis, you'll notice that the total square footage in the proposals are slightly different, and there were two reasons for that. One is that on the first proposal, the estimator was a little more generous on his measurements, how much he wanted to repair outside of the damaged area. The second reason was when the second one came out, the estimator and I missed a couple of spots. So that produced a slightly lower total square footage. So to make it an apples to apples comparison, we created a square footage price. And they came out roughly equal, about 50% difference
50 cents.
50 cents.
per
So it's
square foot.
actually the square footage.
That's
is
your
that-
real comparison, David.
Okay,
All right?
that makes it clear.
And it's, pretty close.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Paving Ladies contract with the amendments to the root barrier being installed and with the contract stating the other item that we want.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed the 10%
Right.
of the project. All we need is a second.
I second the
So
motion.
we can discuss it.
So we already did.
We always beat it to death.
We will discuss.
Just a parting comment. I'm fine with both of these vendors. I really think they do quality work.
Barbara?
I just want to ask one thing, and I understand what you just said, Councilor. Is this going to be changed from 700 to 500 to match this? Because this says 500 and this says 700. I mean, we're not comparing 500 to 500, we're comparing 500 versus 700.
Actually, what you're comparing, Barbara, is a square footage price of $9.65 per square foot versus $9.14
Yeah, but
per
the
square
square
foot.
footage was done on what square footage?
Correct.
On 500 and 700. That's
One
why
person
there's a
was
difference.
inflating the job, that's what he's trying to
One
tell
person
you.
was slightly inflated.
He was inflating the job.
But what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, the 700 square feet is inflated, am I right?
Now, I wouldn't say that this particular inflation is to grind more money out of us. I think that this is an estimate's opinion on how much he should go out from the damaged area to repair. That's
That's an opinion.
it's an opinion.
So we're going
We're
back.
not voting on an opinion, we're voting on square footage.
Well, there you go.
If Stu said, I'm gonna do this for 500 square feet, and you say, I'm gonna do 700 square feet, I wanna know where the difference is.
In the
And
price.
I don't care because it's gonna be a difference in the price.
In the price of the.
Yeah.
In the total price.
Total price, that's what I mean.
So we bring.
Patty and then Stu.
Sorry, so if we're gonna do the lady, the paving lady, so if you did the 500, that's on the other one, times the 914, then that would be your price, equal to the price of the other one, basically.
Correct. In one proposal, 523 square feet divided into 5,050 dollars came out to $9.65 per square foot. And same formula for the other.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is if you say, okay, to the lady, that, okay, only do these 500, do the same 523 square feet at $9.14, it's going to come in less than what the
Of course
other
it is.
guy. So.
And remember, these are both estimates, right? That's why they call the guy who measured it out an estimator. For all we know, when we get out to this actual damaged site, the area of damage may have expanded and need more. So that's why I'm totally cool with 10% as an NTE. That'll cover it.
Stu is next and then Bob.
You can't hold a contractor's foot to the fire on something like this. You've got to allow them certain amount of flexibility. And the reason for that is, and we all know, you buy a can of something in the supermarket, and the can looks good, you open it up, and all of a sudden, something's wrong with it, and you're gonna throw it away. The same thing here, they're going to go ahead and crack what's there, the asphalt. If they come up with, see something, and it's going to be a bit larger repair than they originally scheduled, you have to let them do it. We can't let them do a half-assed job.
I mean, let's,
So, you know, even though they gave you the dollar and cent figure, you can't hold them to the exact size because you don't know what's going to be there. Simple as that.
But
So
then
you
it
have to
becomes
be
a matter of
flexible.
opinion how far they want to go.
Right,
well, that's for your property management.
Dominic, on that,
Yes.
I don't care about the price. I don't care about the price. What I'm talking about is if you take roughly 500 square feet and you times it times 914, you're gonna come up with approximately $4,600 versus $6,400.
Well, I think, I think just, wait a minute, hold on, because this is important. I think just now, you crossed, you did 523 and you times it by 914. I think that was you made a boo-boo. You gotta stick 1 to 1.
What do you mean?
You mentioned 500, roughly 500 square feet. You mentioned $9.14 a square foot.
Yeah,
Well, one's from one proposal and the other is from the other, so.
well, what I'm saying is how can you vote on something if you don't know? I'm not saying the price has to stay still. What I'm saying is, we're saying give 10% over the price, a leeway, because you'll find maybe something else, okay?
Right, and
Well,
let's,
10% over how much?
and let's remember why we're doing these repairs in the first place. These are all walkways. Everybody and their mother is out walking right now. So if it turns out to be more of a job and we need to repair a bigger area, we need to do it, because the reason we're doing it is to keep grandma from tripping on the walkway. So we want to fix we want to get the thing fixed. That's the most important.
I'm
The
not
thing
saying
is,
that.
the thing is how much we're paying for it.
That's what I'm saying, 10% of what
Uh,
amount?
You guys just proved the point that I've been talking about for a year and a half. That's why we need an RFP with a specific number.
Thank you.
We don't have it. We've let the vendors give us their opinion.
We're supposed to tell them.
We're supposed to tell them, this is how many, have them come in, both guys, you should have had both guys come back and say, listen, one vendor's doing this, one vendor's doing another, please submit another. We shouldn't be doing this. This is, the RFP should specifically state how many square feet of blacktop do we need. If we did that, we wouldn't be discussing this for 20 minutes.
Right, but now we're
It's
talking,
nobody's fault, but
now we're talking about a generalist. That would be me. Going out and making an expert opinion, which I'm not qualified to make. The estimator is qualified to make that. And to some extent, we have to trust our estimators,
but-
because that's what they do for a
Donald,
living.
if you had both guys come in, they both give you an idea what it's gonna cost. Then you sit down and write an RFP and you give it to both of them and say, I need 600 square feet of blacktop. How much are you gonna charge me? You add your 10% and they're both bidding for the same amount of square footage. That's what she's trying to say.
Oh, I
Thank
understand.
you, thank you.
Okay? We go through this all the time. We have apples against apples, not apples, peaches, and bananas. You know, I mean, you pick a vendor, one guy said so many square feet, the other guy overestimated the number. Did he do it on purpose? Did he do it because he was a professional? No, he wants to get as much money as he can. Let's be realistic.
Okay, so then
You know-
why are they not topping each other out?
I-
One was less than another.
Because one person said, you showed him the job and the guy wants the job and he said, yep, I'm gonna stick in the parameters that Donald told me.
Now, remember,
That's
when
what
he's
he did.
measuring, I'm with him.
I understand that.
He's measuring with a
But
wheel.
we can't now say one person bid so much, another person bid so much. We gotta pick a vendor and stay with that vendor. We can't go back to the square footage. They both bid on the same job. They just saw it from a different point of view.
All right, so how about this for a rule of thumb? When I get to situations like this, and I've known about this for some time, I could just pick the bidder of the two and say, bid on the same amount. I don't know if that's saving us any money.
You're not looking to save money, you're looking for two people to give you a quote on doing a repair for the same job.
Good job.
Okay, I mean, you could replace a car engine for $1,000 from the junkyard, or you could buy a brand new engine for $10,000. You're doing the same job, but what are you
What do you
comparing
mean?
it to? Something that's brand new or something that's got 100,000 miles on it? You gotta bid on the same thing.
Ed's got a question.
Ed,
I think, not to belabor the point, I think we've covered that to the extent, you're right, Fausto, but I think we've covered that to the extent that we pick the contractor, which is the paving lady, and we say anything above 10, 15% above this calls for another bid.
Yeah.
So,
That would cover the
even,
variance.
Barbara, I agree with you, and I agree with Fausto. I don't know if the other vendor wants to take more money, or he sees or she sees the job differently. And the vendor that bid the larger number of square feet, in that vendor's opinion, that's what the job requires. So if we're gonna go with the paving lady and that's her price, and we picked X percent above it, I think you covered it and closed this contract down. That's my opinion.
wouldn't it be simpler to go out and spray paint and send the two of them out to measure what you want done?
Well, that brings us back to someone who's not an expert on paving. I am not.
But again, it
I know what's
becomes
the problem,
apples and
but-
apples. You have provided a mark here and a mark there, and that's the same no matter whose rule is measured. And then you've got apples for apples.
I mean, I got a wheel, I've got a can of spray paint, I can do this. But,
And then what is being done is what you have outlined. And then it becomes two valid proposals.
all right, noted.
Now we've got 63 ways to go. We're
No,
not-
we have a motion, we have a second, time to vote.
Who
Call the
made the
question.
motion?
Call it.
Fausto made the motion.
And I
Ed
second.
seconded. Yeah, I got,
I would just say that for the amount of money on these two jobs, I think we expended a great deal of time, and I think we revised them to the point that it's conservative. And I think we should move on to the
you're
next
ready
one.
to move on.
Yeah, but Fausto makes a good point about,
David?
Thinking back to the project on Century Boulevard, don't be surprised if the requirement to put in a root barrier and a chemical retardant does not have an impact on his estimated price.
Well, that,
I seem to recall that we had this very same issue over there to a greater extent because of all those trees on the golf course. But I think the 10% not to exceed will cover us, but we may be in for a surprise when you add that requirement specifically to the contract. Just a thought.
well, if they don't agree to it, it has to come back here.
yeah, of course. Just,
And that's the way to get the price.
but just for general knowledge, what Fausto says resonates. We should be looking to refine my methodology and these procedures here as we move forward, and that process should never stop. We should always be looking for the next thing we can do to do it better. There's nothing wrong with that.
So where do we stand?
We're gonna vote.
We're gonna
Vote.
Vote.
Okay, I'm gonna read what I had, and amend what you wrote.
We can't hear too well,
All right, the bid is to accept paving lady's bid of $6,400 to remove and replace 21 damaged asphalt sidewalks in various locations shown on a provided proposal. With square footage price of 914 square foot, including root barrier not to exceed 10% of contract NTE.
NTE,
NT what?
NTE, not to exceed.
Okay. Does that sound correct?
When you, I have a question on that. You said, did you quote the square footage price that's in the paving lady?
Yeah,
yes,
Okay.
700.
Motion is for the paving levy.
Okay,
that's what he said.
and
Okay.
so, and you included that it has to have not to exceed
Yeah, he
and the
just said that.
barriers.
Ed, he just said that.
Okay, because sometimes it's hard.
No, I know, you didn't hear it, that's why I said he just said that.
Okay, Barbara Cornish,
No,
Patricia Caputo,
Yes,
Judy Ansler,
Yes.
Patricia Keene,
Yeah.
David Israel,
Yes.
Edward Grossman,
Yes,
Dominic Garnagia,
No.
what?
no.
No.
Stuart Richland,
Yes.
Fausto Fabro,
Yes.
and I'm gonna vote, I'm gonna abstain on this, sorry.
What is it doing?
Abstain.
I'm gonna abstain.
No.
It's a little confusing for me, so. Okay, so we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 abstain. So, motion carries.
Motion carries.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is replacement of the irrigation flow meters. Each one of our 27 irrigation pumps here at Century Village have a meter. Basically, it's like the meter on your house for water, except it's recording how much lake water we yank out of the lake to irrigate the lawns. These meters are required, and they're required to be kept in calibration by South Florida Water Management District. So this is a regulation-driven expense. What you have in front of you is replacement of 8 micrometer meters. 3 of them have become out of service. They just don't work anymore because they're old. The other 5 have gone out of calibration. What that means is that at a regular interval, and I'm blanking out on what that interval is, we are required to either replace or recalibrate the meter and report that we did that directly to South Florida Water Management District. What we've been doing over the past 5 years is, if the meter is more than 5 years old and it's an analog meter instead of a digital meter, we elect to replace the meter, because the difference between calibration and replacement is so close it just doesn't make sense. And that also lets us refresh the plan. The proposals I'm asking you to look at today are from Chabot Irrigation and from Seacrest Services. Now, you're going to see another proposal from the Avanti Company. The reason I included that is not for your consideration, is this is a supplier of the part. So we got a price from them, a unit price, just to double check on these 2 vendors to make sure they're not thieves. So that's just to be left on the side. There's an actual picture of
There were
the meter.
23 pages, I just didn't want.
Yeah, that was just silly. But anyway, if you look at the blue picture, the one on the top, we only have 1 of those. That's a Camden. That's the biggest pump we have. It's a saddle clamp. The other 2 are flange clamps, and one you can't really see the picture, but one is analog and one is digital. At this point, we only buy the digital. When I brought this to you back last year, Fausto made a good point. He said, rather, because I was looking to buy these things, just buy them off the shelf, and then just pay to have them put in. We all seem to agree that it's probably better to have the installer make the purchase. This way he warranties both the part and the labor. Because if 2 things, and I've done this before, I've actually gone to Avanti and bought these things, made a boo-boo, and bought one of them wrong. So it was on me to actually swap it out and get the right price and make the price difference the same. And the other thing is, if we buy them and then they break, well, sure, they're warranted by the manufacturer and by the person who sold it to us, but we weren't warranted on the labor, and we have to pay to. Not that it's a lot. It's literally $75 to swap out a broken meter in labor, but it is there. So it's a third-fin warranty. Anyway, in front of you have Chabot and you have Seacrest. This is as apples to apples as you can make it. This is a part number. All right, the parts are 103, 102, and one single 304 meter. Difference is one is 16,842 and one came out to 15,756. So there's a price difference of $1,118.44. Thank you for doing that. That's all I got.
Barbara, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question. I noticed that the one proposal is $65 per hour, and the other is $75 per hour.
That's their rate, exactly right.
But what I don't understand is they're both putting in the same equipment, the 8 that you say here, and they're charging $65 an hour, they're $75 an hour. If Shabbat is $10 more, how is his price lower?
Because he's not charging higher, they're charging a higher price for the unit.
That's what I want to know.
Right, they set their
Look
own
at the
labor rate
numbers.
in their proposal.
It's all profit margin.
So what was the
Okay.
total from Avante? Do we know the total there roughly?
I did, I don't know it offhand.
That's one we want to avoid.
Because we kind of deflected from doing that in the last meeting. So I just included that, because I had actually 2 suppliers in the last meeting that, and we kind of shied away from that. We just collectively didn't think that was a good idea.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, if Avante says this is what it costs
Right.
for these things, whatever the amount is, I could add it up. Then we know what they're making on per,
Yes.
Am I
In
right?
other words, that's the reason I included
Avanti is
it.
actually charging us more money than what Cabot is charging us.
I mean,
for the unit.
why do we do this? To
That-
try
that's
to
what
try
I'm
to
trying to get
ascertain what these guys are marking us up. It's not a real, it's not real, because what's happening is Avanti is giving us what's called a counter price. Any jerk goes in
and
and
they
they give you,
get a discount when they go in.
and
I
these
know.
guys are quoting marked up jobber prices. So it sort of tells you what their markups are, but it's rough.
My other question was, so this has nothing to do with the county reading these meters, it's us reading
We
the
are
meters.
required, unfortunately, to pay to have these meters
Well, I
read
know that,
and
I know.
report them.
I know.
Dave refers to it as a racket, and I agree, because the water that comes into that lake, we had to pay for or pray for, right? Rain or required reclaimed water. So we pay it that way, and then we have to pay, to pull it out of the lake with our own equipment, and then we have to pay to have it recorded, reported, and to maintain all that gear. And maintaining this gear is what you're looking at today. So, I just wanted to add one more thing. Dave has given me direction that he wants to get hot on automating every one of these meters.
Telemetric.
And that's something I'm going to be bringing to you in the near future. It's a totally different job. This is a modular part, so it doesn't factor into what we're doing here. But this might be a way to, by automating this system and making it telemetric, it might be a way of reducing or eliminating this $1,380 per month Chabot irrigation bill.
So the telemetry is an add-on to what we're purchasing.
Yeah, it's essentially a cell phone.
Yeah.
I actually, 3 years ago, I brought you, we have one on the property. It was given to us for free as a test. It works like a charm. I get a cell phone message every month telling me how much water that particular pump is drawn out of the canal. So the concept works. It's a proven thing. But you'll be seeing that in the near future, and it's not a small number. We're looking between $30,000 and $40,000. Ed, you had a question?
Both these bids, vendors are using the exact same meter,
Exact.
so
This
There's
isn't
no
just,
advantage
this
or
isn't just apples to
disadvantage.
apples. This isn't just apples to apples. This is Macintosh Apple to Macintosh Apple.
so essentially the difference is
Labor.
what each one estimates, forgetting what they charge you per hour,
Labor.
it's how much labor they
Labor
perceive.
and their markup.
David?
The $1,300 we pay someone to go around and write down numbers, while not breaking the National Bank, I think is a lot of money. And I think we ought to do one project put all these meters on internet right away and generate this report with a button push when required. We say we're going to come along and add on a telemetric capability later. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Meanwhile, we're going to keep paying to send some guy's kid to college at the rate of $1,300 a month, which
That's a lot.
I thought was a total waste of time. If I didn't think he had too much to do now, I'd say, well, maybe a CAM can go around, take these numbers down, but I don't think we should dump that on him. This just screams for an internet solution, and I think we ought to do it right now when we're making this change. It certainly won't get cheaper later.
Anything goes up?
It's also raised his name.
Now, the other suggestion I had, and I think you kind of shot it down, and I understand it probably is not doable, would be to go directly to micrometer. Maybe the concept of selling 26 at once. Of course, you know, it's like auto dealers. The manufacturer is kind of committed to supporting its distributor. So my guess is they're not going to do it.
We
but-
actually tried that, and we got
Okay.
laughed at.
Fair enough.
How many meters do we have in total? This is just a partial replacement?
Ed, we have in total 27 meters, but only 24 of them are these micrometer types. Two of them are another meter called C-Metrics, which is a totally different thing, and it operates a different system.
So the $1,300 a month is just for these particular meters?
No, $1,380 that we spend each month to this vendor, and the vendor, by the way, is Chabot Irrigation. He does two things for us once a month. One is he reads the meters, and then he sends a report to South Florida Water Management District, which is regulation driven. Now, in the past, this was done by the CAM, who actually delegated it to a handyman. Got us into a bit of trouble because the numbers weren't being accurately reported. The second thing that the vendor does for us is to do a monthly maintenance and preventive maintenance check on each of the 27 pumps. That has really helped us in keeping our irrigation system dependable. When I came to work here, there wasn't a week that went by that we didn't have one irrigation section or other just not working because of a parts failure. People were screaming. I mean, when people's lawns turn brown, you know, in 3 weeks it'll look like this, right? It was a problem. Over the years, through wise investment in infrastructure and redesigning of the system, and by putting in a preventive maintenance program, which we pay for, we have a nearly flawless system. I mean, months can go by where I have a section that's actually out for more than a day. So this preventive maintenance program is paying off, as well as the you know, we made it a serious investment in infrastructure over the last 5 years, and security. We secured the systems as well. So will we lose $1,380 in cost by automating the system? I would say no. My guess is that we're still going to have a preventive maintenance program. Let's say, for the sake of argument, it's half of that $1,380 bill, but we don't have to necessarily keep it with this vendor. Like, we could possibly fold it into our other irrigation vendor and landscaping vendor, which is Seacrest. Once we lose that reporting function, there's more we can do. You have more flexibility.
Judy had a hand up
Julie's
next.
I apologize for my ignorance, but I'm just trying to catch
No,
up. When you
for
say
your-
something about implementing these different systems, are there other associations, that's not the right word.
Communities.
Communities that have this in place, and are they happy making that change, or?
The answer as of the last time we visited this was no. This particular upgrade, which you're going to see at a future meeting, and there'll be specifications and lots of stuff you guys to read in advance. At the time, it's mostly used in agricultural settings. The reason that the manufacturer gave us a free one in 2016 to test out was they felt that this particular community, because of its size and because of the decentralized nature of our system, thought that it would be the perfect application for us.
Okay.
Most communities this size that are newer have a more centralized pump system. You might see a pump house that, you know, half the size of this room is the pump. I mean, something you'd see in the sugar farms. But we just didn't set it up that way, and there's history for that, why that happened.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah,
So is this addition mandatory?
no, that's why it's not in this
So it's
proposal.
voluntary.
This is mandatory.
Foster had his hand up and then Mark.
To go on, Judy, to give you about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, we actually did have someone come in and give us an estimate to remove the 27 pumps and make it 4 pumps and replace all the irrigation. We were starting at approximately $8 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely right.
By the
Okay?
way, we're
That's a lot of
reserving
sidewalk
for,
repairs.
So it's a lot, you know, the doing the $2 or $3 or $50,000 a year in repairs is minimal compared to digging up the whole village. And that would not include, I'm sorry, that would not include going to the individual structures. That's the main line at up to 2 inches. From 2 inches going to 1 inch to go into your building would be the responsibility of the building. So we're, and that, I said, that was like 4 years ago, right? I forgot the gentleman's name that we had from Seacrest.
it's more than that, because I've been here almost 6 years.
Tom, yeah,
It was before me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah. So we're probably now, you're looking at $8.5, $9 million.
Thank you.
Barbara?
I just want to ask you, so I get this in my head. So what we're looking at here is not broken, but we're updating it. Is
No,
that-
that's not correct. That's
These are
not.
broken?
These are broken.
That's what I
The
want to know.
thing that we're discussing is a future project that's gonna come at a future meeting, but I'm just giving you guys a
Oh,
heads
so
up.
this is just to fix broken ones?
This is just fixing broken parts.
When, oh, I see. So it's not replacing the actual meter with internet?
Not yet.
No, no.
Now, the way this particular system is set up, it's modular. So, yeah, let's say these 8, we're gonna replace these 8.
Yeah.
And next week you decide I wanna make them telemetric. It's literally a 1-hour job to take the cap off the meter, pop on the internet part, and screw it back together. It's
So
modular.
it's not a big job?
No.
Okay, but here's my question, when David said that. If that's the case, instead of spending $16,000, why don't we just do the internet now on them?
Well,
That you have something broken here.
Well, there's-
You're
there's-
spending 16
We
grand.
still gotta fix the ones
well,
that
you
broke.
still gotta fix this. There's 2 reasons. One is,
No, not if you replace them.
well, no,
but
there
just-
are 2 reasons, and I'm gonna
Oh,
tell you what those
okay.
reasons are now. One is that this is regulation driven, all right? We're already behind, I'm already getting the emails, all right? What rides on this is our permit, and you can't lose our permit. That's you can't even think about it. This has to be done. The second reason is something that was brought up by Ed Grossman in the staff meeting on Monday. The upgrade to the telemetric system, strictly speaking, is a capital expense. It is improving or adding to the plant that already exists. This is just maintaining the plant that exists. So there's a big difference, and that money-wise, that comes from a different place. So,
It all comes from our pocket, no matter how you
yeah, but
look at
that's,
it.
yes or no, but it is what it is. So,
Okay.
anyway.
I just wanted to know, thank you.
Yeah, no.
Anybody else? David?
I want to be honest here, I really do. It galls me that we're paying a man $1,300 a month. You could get a kid to do this for a couple of lollipops. This is a straightforward, trivial job, and we're spending a lot of unit owner money to get it done. All right? This screams for automation, and we ought to do it. We ought to just do it. All right?
Looking
And
at
the
the
data pops up on a computer at Yugo. I can get Steve to write a script to put it right into the water management district's form. Right?
You're looking at $17,000 a year for this contract.
For reading.
This monthly contract.
For
Yeah,
reading.
reading and
But,
maintenance.
okay, you said maintenance, so he's been watching the maintenance of all these pumps here.
Every month.
Okay, so what I don't understand is, if, let's say Coventry broke down, right? Shouldn't he come to you and say, listen, Donald, Cone sheet broke down, we gotta fix it. Why don't we fix it then and there? Why?
He does.
How did
He does.
Well, how
does
come we
fix
have all
it.
this
It's exactly-
money? They didn't all break at once.
No, they did not break it once. And what we
Well, they
did,
broke and it wasn't discovered.
But he's maintaining it every month, it should be.
Well, hardly. That's the point.
That's what I'm getting at when you said that.
well, the answer to your question is, I'm the problem there, because I put off this work, because we were busy with other jobs, and this was a big expense. And then 3 broke all at once in 1 month. If we had done it one at a time, the price would have been higher. It's that simple. So, yeah, it's time to do it. But to your answer to why are we fixing something up, that's exactly what's going on. I'll give you a scenario. Camden is a perfect example. Vendor comes in, he turns on he does his readings and he writes his report, but then he turns on the pump and he does a mechanical and electrical inspection. He's listening to the pump. He hears the pump motor jangle. He'll take a movie of it and send it to me and say, we're about to lose a bearing over at Camden. You want me to fix it? Freaking yeah, I want you to fix it. Camden's my biggest section. Camden wins it. So he's getting in and after checking with me, changing that bearing before it breaks. And let me tell you, when Camden and Windsor go down, and we have to wait, we hear it, and we hear it hard. So that's what preventive maintenance is all about. That's having an expert doing nothing but listening and saying something's about to happen. And you either trust them or you
But
don't.
we still have this
Dominic,
many
I wanna
break.
make a motion, so we-
Okay. Postman?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Chabot Irrigation contract for the replacement of the 8 meters.
I have written down.
We need a second on the motion.
I'll second
So we can
it,
discuss.
just so we can talk about it. Dominic,
Yes.
I have a question. Right now, we're in rainy season, so we're getting a lot of rain, and everybody's grass should look emerald green, it's so green, it's unbelievable. And this is 15,000, I know it's not that much money, but I just gotta ask now, since Donald is here, the fence over by Windsor, behind the motel, has been down for months and months, which is a breach in our security. Shouldn't that be taken care of? And this could wait a month or 2 because we have a rainy season?
Okay.
I don't
I can
understand.
answer
Or do
that.
we have the money to do both?
We have the money to do both, but that's not my answer. Answer number 1 is, and this goes back to your previous question. You notice that 3 of these meters are out of order, they're not functional.
Yeah.
The other ones went out of calibration, which is not the same as being broken. They work fine, but they're not
That's
in
new
calibration. And every year, that's a scheduled expense. We know 6 to 8 are gonna have to be recalibrated or replaced. Nothing wrong with them, they work fine, but not to the satisfaction of the authority that governs this. As far as the fences, you're going to see that next month. The reason you're not seeing it this month is because I'm working on a 3rd proposal. We're looking at about $100,000 worth of expense, and in that case, I really want to bring in Drake. John?
And we also had another problem, but there was a difference in the amount of linear fence that needed to be replaced.
Yes.
We had 2 vendors that came up with 2 different numbers.
Well, then I guess you need a third.
Well, that's why,
Well, yeah,
that's why it's been postponed.
Basically, it needs to be cooked a little more. This needs to,
Right.
when this comes to you, it needs to be
It
pretty
hasn't, we didn't forget about it, it was
No.
Well,
just,
I mean, it's been a long time.
And
what was
also,
the difference, like 400 feet of fence? What was the difference between the 2 vendors?
there's a little more than that, actually.
So think about that, 400 feet of fence difference between one
That's a-
vendor and another.
Right.
That's a lot, and I agree with you, Val. So what I'm saying is, this wasn't a month or 2, this has been like 6 months.
And
And that was right after FPL was done, I'm talking about, not
so
before.
I was in the middle
So
of,
that's a breach of our security, just
so
like
I
Abbott
was,
and we
so I
didn't
was
take
in the
care
middle
it.
of my response to your initial question, which you just
Yeah.
repeated. I'll also point out that over the last 3 months, we were quite busy with the COVID-19 pandemic, and before that, the closing out of the Century Boulevard construction project. There's only so much that we can keep an eye on at one time, all right? I agree that this is an important project, but it needs to be done right. You only got 1 property manager and a couple of guys that help it. So next month,
Well, I just think that a breach in security that we're paying for, when people can come across there and come into our village should be priority.
And they have.
And I'm not saying that
It's
you're
not-
not busy, you're busy.
And that's not a made-up concern. Someone has gone through that fence. You
Oh, I
pictures
know
of-
more than one, I'm sure.
Donna,
Yes,
you say, just to get a bit more, you say 3 are broken and 5 need to be calibrated,
recalibrate.
recalibrated.
3.
Okay. But you also said that we're behind, right? In other words, we should have done this, I don't know, last month.
We're just, let's put it this way, we're just at the cusp where it's gonna be behind. We are just on the cusp of being behind.
So we're not behind right now.
These recalibrations, which are actually replacements, we know in advance when that's gonna happen, because there's a date when it's due. Obviously, we don't wanna do them one at a time, they all go at different times, so we tend to go 3 or 4 at a time and get them replaced. Because of the 3 that went out of service, just because of mechanical failure, it grew from 5 to 8. And frankly, this is another job that I'm somewhat behind on, so I'm busy on other things. So now's the time, here we are.
My only other question then would be, what would be the cost of recalibrating the 5 that are not broken?
3.
No.
No, 3 are out of service, 5
Three
are.
are broken.
Okay.
5 need to be
And
recalibrated.
when we made this decision, it was several years ago that we made it, I cannot remember what the difference was, but it was so small that it didn't make sense to have them brought to a shop and recalibrated, particularly since they're analog meters. In other words, like the old-fashioned odometer in your car.
Right.
Not your new car, your old car, the one that
Right.
goes like this. The decision was made years ago that we will not recalibrate those. We'll replace them with the digital version, which is less prone to mechanical failure because there's less moving parts. That's where we're at.
The only other question to wrap that up for me is, what is the useful life? What is the estimated life of the new meters?
Well, the new ones,
Yes, in other words, you're replacing 8.
right.
You said you discussed this years ago. So, and then David brought up the fact to step it up that you could do it through your wristwatch, so to say.
Pretty much.
So, all I'm saying is, we're replacing 8. What is the useful life of the 8 that we're replacing?
This, I don't know.
It's an electrical piece.
Well, I can tell you this with certainty. The estimated useful life of a digital meter is going to be more than a mechanical meter. Mechanical parts fail.
Oh, that's for sure.
That's,
Absolutely.
And are they
by the way,
ga-
you were 100% right about seeing it on my watch, because my other watch is hooked to this, and I do have that app on my watch.
The only other, I feel like Columbo, just one more question.
It's one more question. But that's the last question.
But I
is
didn't
the
bring
voice.
my raincoat today.
No remarks before we go to a motion?
Are they guaranteed for
I made
any
the motion.
period of time?
Yes, they are.
I made the motion, do I have a second?
How long are they guaranteed?
I have 3 years. I have 3 years in my mind, but don't quote me on that. There is a guarantee, 100%.
David?
Few comments on this conversation. Assuming the money is there,
Assuming.
I believe we can actually walk and chew gum at the same time. I don't see any reason why the fence project and the water meter project can't go forward simultaneously. One point on the water issue. You're dealing with one of the greatest autocracies since Attila the Hun,
No idea.
South Florida Water Management District.
God. You're dealing with
Now,
God.
I've been here long enough to remember the goat rope we went through to get that master water permit. It took Sal Bumalo 3 years to get that master water permit. We lose that permit because of non-compliance. The days of sucking water out of the pond are over until that permit is reestablished. You got to be very careful in doing business with South Florida Water Management. They're very difficult people to deal with.
Just to give the committee an idea of where we're at as far as compliance. We're in compliance now, but we're starting to get the emails. Now, I put a contract between me and South Florida Water District because I'm scared of it, right? We're starting to see the emails from the analysts directly to our vendor. He kind of stands in between us and says, oh, sure, by next month we'll have them, whatever it is. The next step will be an email directly to me. That's the alarm. When I get that, that's the one that I lose sleep about. That hasn't happened yet, so you're not at that point. But,
You cannot.
that's why we do it. That's why we take care of this.
Hassan Hajimiri is no longer,
No,
Wow.
say goodbye.
but he was cute too.
You're telling me.
Listen, his organization is a dream to work with. That's
Yes.
Palm Beach County Water. They're nothing but helpful to us. This is South Florida Water Management District, and I fear that.
Let me just say something. And you can do your own research. This is part of a huge South Florida flood control system. This is why they're so strict about this. They need to know exactly how much water is being, well, their main interest is how much water, if any, is being taken out of the aquifer. And then the restrictions, I mean, you never saw anything like it. But they track every usage of water that they're aware of. And, Donald's comments about we pay for this, we pay for that, is terrible. It's terrible. We're paying for that reclaimed water. For 20 years, we're going to be paying for the construction of that plant.
Yeah.
That gives us reclaimed water, $3,300 a month, plus a commodity charge for the reclaimed water.
Just to give you an idea of the mindset of the authority we're dealing with, when I go into that, the Cathedral of Water, as I call it, on Gun Hill Road, in the lobby, there's a big plaque, brass plaque, that says, quote, water is a precious and finite resource. That's everything that comes out of it comes out of that mission statement.
Stuart?
Just one comment. We have to replace the pumps. And that's what we're dealing with here. Part two of that is to do what had been suggested, that the telemetric adjustments to the pumps we can use as a capital expense, as you had mentioned on Monday. And we'll put it right in the budget, plan for it and everything else. As far as the broken fence and people climbing over, we don't seem to have people running around here willy-nilly. And it's a concern. I'm
That's
not
not true.
brushing it off, but it's not the
That's not
concern
true.
we're dealing with here.
That's not true.
So let's take care of this first. And then if you want to discuss about the fence and what to do, you can do that afterwards.
Barbara?
I live in Chatham, you live in Somerset.
Right.
I know people who live in Windsor. Go talk to those people who live across the street from the fence,
That's right.
okay? If you don't think security is a main thing in this community of senior citizens,
Yeah.
that's wrong.
And
Sorry.
Point of order.
how many times have these
Point of
people
order.
come to our meetings to complain?
Point
Call
of
the
order.
question.
Yeah, let's call this question.
Point of order, we have a motion on the floor.
We have a
Let's do it.
second.
Okay.
Let's vote on it.
Can you read the motion?
Okay, he wrote the motion prior to, so I'm trying to
Okay.
make it different. It says here, to accept Chabot irrigation bid and remove and replace the equipment. I crossed out what equipment it was, and I'll enter that in afterwards.
As per estimate.
Right.
Right, that's what I was just gonna say.
As per estimate.
You might as well put the price in.
Prices, $15,723.56.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? All right, so, Barbara Cornish.
Yes.
He's not here. Patricia Caputo,
Yes.
Judy Amsler,
Yes.
Patricia Key,
Yes.
David Israel,
Yes.
Ed Grossman,
Yes.
Don Benargia,
Yes.
Stuart Richard.
Yes.
Fausto Fabro,
Yes.
and I make it unanimous.
Okay, just to inform the committee, you should expect to see the preliminary proposals on fence repair next month. And I think I'm also gonna have the telemetric, meter thing ready by then as well.
Okay.
Ed, you have a question?
You said fence repair, isn't this fence replacement?
In some places, yes.
I mean, the repair is they go around, you fix it.
Well, some
I get the impression, I haven't seen it, this fence is down.
The answer to your question is in some places, yes, in some places, no. My,
I'm talking about
I'm
your
gonna
property.
explain it to you now.
Thank you,
He's
Chief.
gonna tell you.
But I'm gonna tell you now. My one paragraph RFP to the vendors is that through the entire length of the fence, and it's quite a bit, it's 2 miles, replace where unavoidable and repair when you can. There are parts of the fence that were undamaged by FPL. Leave those alone. There are some that are simply tipped over a little bit. It just takes a couple of guys in a machine to right it and re-anchor it. In some places, the fences is just wrecked out, and that would be most of where we're talking about at Windsor. It's gone.
Is
Fence
that the
gone.
1,400 feet is totally ripped out?
It's 1,400 feet is about right, actually.
And in addition to the 1,400 square feet, you have other,
Oh, we have miles. It's the
no,
entire.
I'm not talking about the whole perimeter
Right.
of the village. I mean, you could see that. I'm talking about the specific area that Barbara was.
14 sounds about right.
Close to
From
And it's linear feet, not square feet.
linear feet, yeah. So it's from West Canal
Big difference.
east to our entrance. That's the section we're talking about.
And the entire section is gone.
No, some of it is undamaged. In that particular spot, there's a section to the east that's undamaged, and there's a section to the west that's just wrecked.
Do you have any idea? I mean, because you mentioned 1,400 feet. To me, that sounds like you have one run
It is one run.
of 1,400 feet,
In that section, yes.
plus others.
Oh, yeah. You've got the other side of the south boundary, which is to the east of Yuko. You have some repairs there, not a lot. But then you have the entire northern boundary of Century Village, from one end
That's
to
a
the other. There's work to be done in almost every section there.
That's a different situation.
But
It's
we're
not
gonna-
down, but Barbara
Oh,
brought
no.
up.
There's sections on the north section
No,
that
there
are
is.
gone, not just down. You have sections that have disappeared, they're gone. There are sections that
By
are
the
down.
North Canal, yes.
Yeah.
I think we should do our best to document those damages which we can ascribe to FPL.
All of it?
Now, just hold on. As much of a monopoly as is South Florida Water Management, FPL
This works.
makes that pale in significance. And if we have some documentation, I would like to go to the attorney, our attorney, and explore the possibility of vigorously trying to get compensation from FPL.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Because this is gonna cost us, I don't know, what, $35 a linear foot?
I'm estimating it'll be a $100,000 bill.
Yeah, this is, and they did so much damage in here. Now, I know what their comeback is. Well, you shouldn't have a fence on our line. Well, we'll see about that, right? We'll see about
All right, as
that.
far as documentation, we've got tons, so that's not a worry.
Good.
But here's 2 things about the wreck out of that fence. First is, this is a case where Dan Cruz actually went to bat for us, because he had similar problems at Boca. So, he made a hard push to get FP&L to make the repairs in both communities, and particularly us. Basically, and this is more for us than in Boca, we have let that fence line, which was installed in 1983, it was one of the first major undertakings of UDO, to put that fence up. We just ignored it for 50 years, and the invasive trees had grown into the fence. The fence had grown into it. I mean, look, in some places you couldn't tell where the tree and the fence, they were like one organism. It's amazing. And that in FP&L's view is on us. The other thing is, we have to keep in mind that this company, FP&L, may have done $100,000 worth of damage to our fences, but they also did over $500,000 worth of tree clearing at no cost to us. Which,
Is that a fact?
which
Is that a
frankly, we
fact?
never would have done, ever.
Right.
So they went ahead and did it, right?
Right.
I wasn't happy about it when it happened, but when I saw the result, and the other thing is, we now have a more robust power line problem. And we're not gonna have as many downtime on electric. So, I agree, I mean,
We'll see what the attorney says.
That's
Absolutely.
what
I
you should
agree
do,
with
the
you.
attorney.
I agree.
and we've got nothing but documentation, we've got tons.
Nothing to
But we
lose.
have nothing to lose by him talking to the attorney.
No, that's absolutely not. And,
A few bucks.
I mean, as
A
far
few
as
bucks is worth
documentation,
it.
you just go to every
Is
one
a
of my.
few bucks worth it? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And if you want documentation, just go back to every one of my weekly reports for 6 months. I basically took a picture of everything they did in that place. So, we got it.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else, gentlemen?
10 minutes past 11. You want to make a motion, please?
I make a
Motion to
motion
adjourn the bids and infrastructure.
Not really knowing, Donald may have a few things. I don't have any written agenda for an officers committee meeting. It's really gonna kind of rely, you may recall, in a couple of staff meetings, I asked for input. I didn't really get any. So, maybe, I'll look first.
Have
The
you closed
officers
this meeting?
meeting commence.
Was this meeting closed?
Yes, yes, yes.
This
Yeah.
is closed.
This is
now.
closed.
Now they're gonna open the offices. Are we
Yes.
allowed to stay for the offices since
Yes,
we
of
have
course you
distance?
can. Can we take you out?
Since you're already here.
You've already breathed on all of us. What's the point?
No, I agree.
Yes,
We
of
breathe
course
on
you
each
did.
other.
Mine too.
All right, take care. You too.
So,
Good job, Donald.
Thank you.
Cab, yeah, you got anything that the officers should take up?
Please, didn't I cover it?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
okay.
No, nothing to report further.
Barbara,
I have a question. I was at a meeting Wednesday, finance meeting. We saw it on TV, your blog. And it was said by someone that WPRF has figured out that we can hold 240 people in the theater,
right,
okay?
At maximum.
Max, right.
Right.
So I asked, well, why can't we have, I don't mean July, but August, think about having a delegate meeting, okay? Delegates first inside that room, because they're the most
Ah.
important. First delegates. If you have a few people who want to come in and you have the room, fine. If you don't, they don't go in. But you have up to 240 people. You know, and everybody in this room knows, that you're lucky if you have 120 people as delegates come the summer.
Right.
We're lucky we make the 117. So I can't see why in August you don't plan on a meeting. I don't understand what the roadblock is.
we could say, it's easy to handle.
That's how you,
We could say principles only, like we have been doing.
right.
Principles only,
Thank you.
and you're right. It's just, God, it would just be our luck that 300 people show up, but you're
Well,
only
you're
gonna
never
stop
gonna
it.
have it in 100 years.
It's never happened. It's happened. We could
Go
just,
back 10 years and look at this summer.
we could just stop it at the sign-in. So the answer is yes. Also, I looked into Zoom, and believe it or
can't
not,
do it. Zoom
it
is
has
too hard.
options for 300
It's too
and
hard.
even 1,000, but it'd be very chaotic.
The
Yes, it
people,
would.
I'm on Zoom every Monday, and I was on the Zoom with the advisory, which worked fairly well. But you are not gonna get your delegates to be able to go on Zoom. They're not, and someone's gotta control when the hands go up and everything. You know that, look, you got them to use your clicker. So instead of a clicker, you use the paper, remember the old paper? That's how you're gonna have to vote. Because I know that, Anita, we'd love to get these bylaws completely done, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, maybe not this month. Maybe we'll give it a try next month.
yeah, you can't do it this one's too short a notice.
And we'll see. I think it'll work out. Donald?
All right, this has come up in previous meetings as we're trying to deal with this pandemic. We have a lot of meetings around here. That's how we govern ourselves. And these committees are important, and these other bodies are important to meet and to make decisions. all right? But now we have the pandemic. So the question is, are we just putting people in a room for no good reason except to breathe and hack on each other? Or do we have at least one piece of significant business
You
to make a
do.
decision on? In this case, you do.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying.
you need to get to the, but if you didn't have that, why put those people at risk?
Well, you're gonna have to see as the months go what happens
I mean,
with
well,
Hampton.
We could create a bulk email header. It's problematic in terms of bylaws and, because there's no discussion, there's no interaction. You just send an item out and ask for them to vote and collect the responses by email.
I mean, one of the reasons that we combined these two meetings, one of the reasons was I wasn't ready last week, right? But the other reason is, we just made two meetings into one. So we've reduced the exposure. And so, that's what we need to think about
But this
when
room
we
was,
decide to have a meeting.
this room was figured out when we came into ops, because we have more people in
Yeah,
ops
yeah.
than anything else. But I still say, you have people, and you know it, David, that don't use a computer.
That's right.
They don't use a damn smartphone. They might have it, but they don't know how to use it. And the point is, to have a delegate meeting and use those little tabs, the color,
Right.
what's wrong with that? I don't see a thing
Nothing.
wrong with it.
Except that what happens when some people want to speak
I don't
out?
think
I'll
it
tell
would,
you.
I don't think it would be safe to use the clickers, you have to wipe them down.
No, I'm saying the old-fashioned ones,
Right.
that's it. And
And
as
the
far as the
microphones.
microphones,
Microphones too.
let me tell you about the microphones. All you have to do is put a cover over it. You have to speak with your mask on. Do you understand?
I know, but that's muffled a lot of times. I just listened to something that I did. I had a meeting the other day with the graduates the Bible study, and I kept saying, I can't hear you. I can't
With a
understand
mic?
you. Because they had the mask on.
No, but a
They
mic
were there in
amplifies.
They were there in present, and I was Zoomed. I zoomed in, and I missed half of the meeting.
Yeah.
So
This
I don't know
this
what's
is
a good
happening
idea.
in Congress, never mind Hugo, so.
I mean, that's something you guys have to decide
look,
as a group.
This,
All
What we
should
have
have
right
to
now,
decide.
what we have right now, the way this setup is, I think is a really good setup.
Well,
We
this
can
is-
add more tables
In the back.
in that direction and have,
you're not gonna get 117.
No, you can't.
no, I'm not talking about delegate, I'm talking about for regular
Regular meetings,
Regular
committee
meetings.
meetings.
Yes, yes.
You know, this actually works out really well. Everybody's 6 feet or more apart,
Absolutely.
all right? There's enough spacing. You don't have to have your mask on if you're that far.
Ed's been waiting a while.
Foster's been raising his
All right.
hand.
I personally may be oversensitive to, to the viral thing because of the kidney transplant. And I keep seeing on television, it's exploding, and especially in our
Yeah.
area.
That's a
Now, I'm
fact.
a little for a delegate meeting, but my thought would be, it's the summer, why, if we're gonna do it, and you feel you could put it into the main room for September, by that time, we'll really know, because we're one of the hottest spots in the country
I don't
right
think it'll
now.
be over.
No, I know.
I don't think it'll be over
I
by
don't think so.
September.
That's, it's just
It
my
is, it's
thought.
spiking like crazy around here.
Yes, it is.
Dave, Fausto has a question.
Fausto,
September, and this would give me a lot of time. I need a little help. I want to put together a bulk email header. And those that we can't get to, we could probably get to by telephone. I think there's a number of ways of skinning this cat. I don't know whether you want to risk putting all those people together in there.
that's what I
And
said.
not so much in the room, but the schmoozing
That's it.
out in the lobby, and it's so hard to stop it.
That's why people are getting sick.
But it's certainly doable, there's no doubt. We'll work on this, yes.
What we're forgetting here is that it's up to the governor of Florida, who has limited what areas can be used and what areas can't be used. Right now, that theater is like a movie theater
Exactly.
Right.
for us.
Not using
They're not
it.
open. So we could think all we want about using it, and the statement that was made that under the current guidelines, as was a month ago, we were told that the most that we could fit in there, 220, maximum 240, that's utilizing the entire theater out of
Right.
1,200
That's
people.
when they allow us to.
That's when they allow
They
us
have
to do it. So for us to say, well, we're gonna do it in September, we're gonna do it in August, if the government, especially now that we have a spike, you can't make plans for that. Until we need to stay in touch with WPRF when their legal department gets a statement from the governor that says, okay, you guys can now breathe. Now remember, in order to do that, everybody that comes in has got to get their temperature taken, they got to follow all those guidelines.
No,
You can't just walk in there and say, we're here.
no.
No, what do you mean, no? Yes.
Do you have your temperature taken when you come in here today?
No, but we're,
And the ops should do that, don't you? That's the ops, and WPRF lawyers say,
That's-
take your temperature.
Right.
That's what they run.
Right.
When we run, we don't do it that way.
so if
But
we
what
get
I'm
sick,
trying
we're
to
liable.
say- But what I'm saying to you, that theater's not been used as a theater. That it's used as a meeting hall when you have a delegate assembly. Yes, you should check with WPRF, because their
Barbara,
lawyers.
legal told WPRF this is the only room that they can use. They can't use any other room in the building, other than for their offices.
Have you talked to them recently?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
Look.
I'd like to get a letter from them.
welcome.
And I will
Talk to
bring it up
Eva.
Tuesday.
Barbara, you talk to Eva, call Eva,
I don't
ask her.
call her.
Let's do it.
Well, certainly we can look into this. I remember Abby made this comment, that they went out there and they measured with laser measurement, blah, blah, blah. They came up with these
Yeah,
numbers.
220, but most 240.
All right, I think we ought to, as a pro forma, have Dom make the motion on what the bid committee just recommended and vote on it. Right?
For their offices, yeah.
The
Not-
offices have to vote on what we just voted
Yeah,
on.
that's the next
Yeah,
step.
yeah. We made two recommendations, and formally we should, the officers should confirm them or deny them. Okay.
I usually try to let you.
Yeah, you want to repeat the motions? So we get we're voting on the same apples?
We vote at
Okay.
once.
First motion
7.
Was for the routes.
First motion was
Paving road.
to accept the Atlantic Paving bid of $6,400 to remove and replace 21 damaged asphalt sidewalks in various locations shown as the provided proposal with square footage price of $9.14 per square foot, including root barrier, not to exceed 10% of the contract ETA.
All right,
I thought it was paving lady.
Not Atlantic, it's paving lady.
Yeah.
Paving lady, not Atlantic.
Oh, did I say Atlantic?
Yeah, you
Yes,
did.
you
I'm
did.
sorry.
Paving lady.
I'm
Everything
sorry.
else was right.
It's crossed out paving ladies
That's
written
right.
above.
are you making that motion?
I'll make the motion. since I
Yeah,
wrote
I'll-
it originally.
You'll make
I'll
the
make,
I'll second.
All right, do we have, okay, you're seconding. Is there any further discussion? We've had quite a bit of discussion.
Thank God.
We're all discussed out.
So,
why don't addition of the amendments to the original proposals that we discussed, not to exceed 10%,
Right.
and.
have you got that in there?
Yeah, I
And the
said,
roof
I said not to
barrier.
exceed 10% of
And the
contract.
root barrier.
And root barrier.
Okay.
And I'll send final version of the contract out to everyone.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
so, call the officers.
David Israel,
Yes.
Ed Grossman,
Yes.
Dominic Carnaglia,
Them too, yes.
Stuart Richmond,
Yes.
Fausto Fabro,
Yes,
me, yes. And the others are not here. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses. I don't know. Motion carries.
No, it's just
All right,
a formality, but do the other one too.
all right.
Chapel.
The formality.
find it?
Don't give me a hard time, all right?
I'm trying to help you.
Do them to help you.
All right, to accept Chopper bid, irrigation bid to remove and replace equipment, as per estimate for $15,723 and 56 cents. I have a second.
We have a second.
I'm doing the motion.
I'll second.
There's no seconds. All
I
right.
don't want to be a roll.
Okay, David Israel,
Yes.
Ed Grossman,
Yes.
We'll shut down.
Dominic Carnaglia.
Yes.
I did it right that
Got
time.
it.
Stuart Richland,
That's only.
Yes.
Fausto Fabro,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that's,
Start in.
Same thing again.
On Ed Gross? What about Ed Gross?
I already said Ed Grossman.
Did he vote?
I was the second vote.
Oh, okay.
Number 2.
All right. So that carries two. Is there any more business to come before the officers committee?
Yeah, Dave, I just wanted to pick up on this idea about using the theater again. I was thinking about it, a lot of those voting. At some point, the government is going to give us the okay to open up the theater. Sometime after that, WPRF will make the decision to allow us to use the theater with restrictions, right? And we have to do whatever they tell us to do. At some point after that, the officers will decide to have a delegate assembly meeting. Those things will happen in that sequence. Okay, we have the meeting, and there's an important thing to vote on. God help us. If one old lady comes down with this virus, no
That's
matter
true.
where she picks it up,
No
We might get
guarantee.
sued.
All right, look,
we're gonna hear it.
listen.
That's a good.
About 1,100 people were tested in our testing program. And that includes a number of employees, contractors that work here. And 6 were found to be positive. Now, what that company does, sends them a mail. You were found to be positive, see your doctor, or you can see our doctor. That's the essence of the letter. But who knows how many people they infected? Who knows? I mean, people are going out now all the time. All right? Myself included, and I really think about it. You can ignore the news all you want, but South Florida is a major spike right now. South Florida, Texas, a number of other places. There's no way they're going to be able, in a lawsuit, to say, I got it here at this delegate assembly.
I'm not even
But
thinking.
I understand the risk. I'm going to run this by a lawyer. But I'll tell you, no one is more risk averse than Laura Coffey, who is WPRF's attorney.
Actually, I wasn't even thinking about liability in that sense. What I was thinking about is effect on the community.
Yeah.
I watched the Coconut Hotline burn bright for the last 3.5 months, and I had to put out, and Shawna and I both had to run around and put out a lot of fires, a lot of real panic, and that's my worry. That just one person, and that gets around the community, and we have to deal. First, we're going to scare shit out of people, and you know how rumors spread in this place. I think we just need to be real careful. The other thing that comes to mind is, and Fausto hit on this, you can't control the schmoozing. Now,
What?
The schmoozing is hard to control.
Yeah, it is hard.
I went out to dinner Friday night, the new Randy's, and I'm sitting at my table with my group, and there's another group of Century Villagers. There were 3 in total, all people I knew from Century Village. The 2 were there before us. Their dinner was served, they paid the check. They were there a half hour or more afterwards because they just didn't want to leave. They're
Not
so
2 feet
starved.
apart.
They're so starved for contact, to talking to each other. That was more than the food. And that's what you're trying to control here. It's a difficult thing.
All right, Barbara.
During this 3 months, whatever it is now, 3-4 months,
God.
I have not gone out to eat, and I have not bought nothing in from the supermarket. Because I don't want to take a chance on underlying health.
What are you eating?
I'm eating food,
growing your
cooking,
own
I'm
food?
nothing. No, we get from Publix. But the point I'm saying to you is restaurants are open, you've all gone, you've gone to a restaurant, you've gone to a restaurant. You can't stop everything. Like you say, Yuko's open, am I not? You're open for business. Well, this is part of our business, but it has to be done smartly.
Judicious.
And let their lawyers tell us. Let them take the responsibility. That's what I would
Fair
do.
enough. Yes.
I would like to tell you a short story. A neighbor of mine, son is a doctor. He was working with COVID patients. He had no signs. He's been testing for 6 weeks positive. His daughter tested for 4 weeks, so that business of 2 weeks
Doesn't mean nothing.
doesn't mean anything, because 6 weeks and he's still testing positive. So,
Testing
That
doesn't mean
that
nothing.
just means he's got the virus in his
And
system.
he ain't getting
He
rid
could
of
be
it, he's a
immune.
doctor.
but he's a doctor and he's not
If
getting
the
rid of it,
person-
so.
If you're immune, you're still gonna test positive if you have it.
First of all, the tests that you guys did are not 100% accurate.
Right.
My sister's neighbor had that test, she tested negative. She kept coughing and she ran a fever, she went in, she got a different kind of test, she's positive. So even though there may only be 6 people showing up, that's not a guarantee that a lot more people don't have it.
That's right.
You could get tested, walk out,
You get it.
and have it 10 minutes later.
I know, so my
get in
point
contact
is,
with somebody. So
we're
to be
separated
the
at that
testing,
moment.
to be
I
the
know, but
testing is
it's-
ridiculous.
In a bigger group, the bigger the group, the more chances are, that's my point.
All right, do we have any other business?
Yes.
Hunger.
My concerns about a person on the finance committee. All
What?
right, I think he has one person on his finance committee that should not be on there. And from everything that I hear, and I'm gonna say his name, and what's his name? Dan
Gladstone. We
Gladstone.
covered that at the staff meeting.
Dan Gladstone, I don't believe should be on there. I don't think he should be on, in any committee dealing with any finances. And I wanna make a motion
Is this being
Yeah.
recorded?
that the officers ask, prevent him from being on that committee.
Is this being recorded?
Yes,
Yes.
I do.
yes, I'm doing this publicly. I've heard a lot about, some of his dealings in the past, both here and in Israel, and I believe that he should not be dealing with finances in this village.
All right. I hear what you're saying. It has been my policy, although bylaws really do give me a broad bit of authority in the population of committees, to leave the population of the committees in the hands of the chair. The chair has to work with these people. I agree with you. I believe there's an issue as well. I did a good bit of the research on Dan Gladstone, formerly known as Dan Barzilay. It's the best I can do with that name. And his complicity, perhaps his complicity in the collapse of a major Israeli bank. All right?
And
This is public record.
I
This
wanna
is
make a-
public record.
I want to make a motion.
Okay, I'm just, as part of discussion.
Well,
All right.
we can discuss after the motion.
Okay,
All right,
fair
we're
enough.
gonna do it correctly. All right, my motion is to have Dan Gladstone removed from the finance committee. Period.
Do you have a second for that? For the purpose of discussion, I'll second the motion. All right.
My question is, do we have the right as officers to have that person removed? I know that you have the ultimate say, but do we as officers have the right to vote on removing that person from the committee? I'm just asking, I don't know.
Read the bylaws.
Sure you can. There's no reason, there's virtually nothing you can't vote on as long as it's not a violation of the law. Right? It's clearly not a violation of the law. Barbara?
If you read the bylaws, and it's our bylaws, every committee, except finance, it is up to the chair to pick out the people. Once they pick out the people, you're going to recommend who the chair is, okay? They pick out who they want on the committee they can work with. If they decide, a chair, that I'm not good on the committee, they then have to give me written notice why. That's the new bylaw. The bylaw says in the finance committee, it is up to the officers, which includes David, to approve who the treasurer picks for his committee.
Are you quoting from,
I'm quoting the new bylaws.
that haven't been passed yet?
Yes, they have, they were passed as soon as, excuse me, ask Anita, as soon as they were accepted by delegate assembly, they're
That's
enforced.
true.
They were,
Quite
she's
right.
right, I agree.
True, true. All right.
And I'm not taking sides, I'm just saying
Yeah.
what our bylaws say,
No,
that's
she's
all.
right.
So I'm just saying Bob is within his right. I'm not saying
All
right
right.
or wrong.
Any further discussion on this? Obviously, we're going to hear from Ed.
Take Stuart first.
Stuart said,
Okay, go ahead, Stuart.
I'm aware of what you had said about one's past performances and so on. And some of the things that had rumored, I don't know whether it's a fact or not, but was discussed over a period of time. I'm also a firm believer in second chance. And if I can understand where you're coming from, because I have a tendency to, or at least I'm sympathetic with you, and I'm not dismissing what you're saying and its impact that you feel that could happen to screwing up the committee. My attitude is, though, that I would rather have the person stay there, and if something happens in the future that is clouds his activity or does something that you would feel is objectionable, basically the chairman of the committee would make that final decision. And one of the remedies that Barbara had said, if you're unhappy with someone in the committee, rather than dismiss them out of hand, you have to tell them, look, we're unhappy with, and you give them a list of the things that you're unhappy with, and give them an opportunity to make adjustments in whatever it is that you're complaining about. And if that doesn't work, then you could say, I'm sorry, we don't need you here anymore because you're not helping the committee. That's the way I see it. So I would vote no, in a sense, that keep them on the committee.
On Ed's next.
And I'm going back to our preliminary discussion. When I chose those people that I felt would be beneficial to the committee, which would also be beneficial to the village, I'm well aware of your concern. I am definitely in line with Stuart. Okay. We had, I think, a very good meeting yesterday, and it was in harmony. And I feel the reason I chose Dan is from an economic standpoint, I think he could help the village. Okay? Now, if you're branding somebody, I think you're going very, very, very far. So, I'm going to say the same thing that I said at the staff meeting. And I'll be the first one to say if there's something that's untoward, I would very personally ask Stan to stand down. But I don't see that now, and I think it's bringing up a black mark that doesn't have to be brought up at this particular time.
Tom,
All right, my understanding of the Finance Committee, that it is an advisory in nature. My understanding of the Finance Committee is that it is advisory in nature, similar to the Big Infrastructure Committee. Any decisions that are made there, whether they're influenced by Mr. Gladstone or not, don't have any standing until the chair of the committee, which is Ed, brings it first to the three bodies, which is the officers and the executive committee and the delegates. So basically you have a group that's making recommendations. This is one person in a group of many.
8.
So there's some dilution there. You're vouching for him, basically. There's a lot of controls here, and I think the officers can keep this in mind. This is not someone who's going to have our checkbook. That's my
I'm going to
thought.
just finish this up. I find it very distasteful. I really do. No one is without fault in this room for something. And I'm gonna reiterate, if I didn't think Dan would be a contributor, I could have just not picked him. Okay, so
I don't have anything personal against him, I just,
I didn't say you did.
his
Whether you
reputation
have anything
is
personal or
not
not,
good, and
I don't think has anything to do with it. That's your feeling. And I feel we got off to a good start. No one in the room had any objection. Barbara was there. Fausto was there, who was a very big contributor. Dominic was there.
No,
So-
Dominic wasn't there.
No, Dominic wasn't.
David Bowes.
David Bowie's, yeah, I don't see him there. So I'd like to put this to rest. It seems Bob has this feeling. He's brought it up twice. I'm calling for a vote.
All right, state the proposition that we're voting on. It's simple.
the motion is to have Dan Gladstone removed from the finance committee.
All right, and I seconded that for the purpose of discussion. All right, call it.
David Israel,
Yes.
Ed Grossman,
What does the yes mean?
To remove,
My answer,
remove-
yes.
To remove him?
Yes.
remove him.
It's just it's one vote, Ed.
You're voting,
Yeah.
you're
You're
voting.
voting no.
I just want to
You
know. Okay.
called for a vote.
Ed Grossman,
Okay.
Oh,
Not remove him, no.
Dominic Garnagia,
Yes.
Stuart Richland,
No.
Fausto Fabro,
I'm gonna go be abstaining from voting because I don't know what the qualifications that the committee chair to populate that committee. Business-wise, financial-wise, I have no idea what his criteria was to populate that committee. So I have to abstain from voting. And none of us should really be voting because we don't know what their qualifications are. The right thing would have been the chair to say, these people are on this committee because they were business people, they have this financial background, blah, 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 blah. We don't have any of that. So
He essentially said that.
Right, he did say.
He said that.
With the applications he took.
Vote the way you feel.
Okay.
Vote the way you feel.
So
So,
vote.
all right, what's the result?
2, 2, and 1.
Huh?
2, 2, and 1. 2 yeas, 2 nays,
my motion does not.
one
Really
abstain.
moved.
So you,
Huh?
exactly.
It's really moot. Presented with a moot vote.
Okay, well, at least
A move
publicly,
vote.
my
Move
objections
vote.
are noted.
All right.
So no change.
Any other business to come before the officers committee?
Just
Ed?
at the, which was off topic yesterday, and was really the feeling of a lot of people that talked to me, and some of the people at the committee. Tuesday is the operations committee meeting, and I feel I haven't really decided, but I feel it's worthwhile for us to bring up that there be some sort of give,
Some sort of what?
reduction in WPRF's ticket. And I'm saying I'm not taking a position yes, and I'm not taking a position no, which is very unusual for me. But I think it doesn't cost anything to ask. And if you talk around the village and other condominiums, people feel there should be something. Now, Eva wrote a long thing and made her case for why there shouldn't be anything. But at the end of the year, if there's a
Surplus.
surplus, she would reduce it.
Now, understand at this meeting, Ed, we're to hear from Monica on this subject.
I think so.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. In other words, Monica is bringing up the subject.
yeah.
She's the money person.
I understand that. I understand what she does. I was unaware that she's bringing it up.
Yeah, yeah.
After that meeting, I mentioned to one or two people that, David, you consult Rod all the time.
Sure.
And I think this is a topic that it can't hurt for you to call Rod, okay, and ask his opinion I mean, you know the ultimate is if they say no, you can go to arbitration, but all that costs money. And my feeling is in a negotiation, if you're gonna take, like someone said yesterday, 70%, I said, don't even bother going. You know, because you have to, I'm not saying I'm saying easily 70% is out of line. But when you go into the negotiation, you have to know where you're gonna stop. And if you go in and you have nothing and you're going out of line, you're not gonna go anywhere. So I really feel, and you made a note, David, the first thing is to get some sort of feel from Rod.
I will. Got it.
And I think that'll give us a better idea of what we should do.
Yeah. It needs some kind of actuarial computation. Of the services we're missing, obviously quite extensive. The pools, the card rooms, you name it. I'm sure there's a way of computing a dollar figure, but I'll see what Ron has to say. And obviously, we'll hear from Monica. She said that she's going to make some kind of statement on this at the operations committee, and there we can make our views heard. I think something of a reduction is in order. I just don't know what the percentage is.
That's the hard part. Because when you had the situation when there was the hurricane, it was completely different. And what was brought out yesterday, and Dan's an insurance man, the hurricane called for WPRF to have business interruption insurance. Now, I don't know WPRF's policy.
I think he does, but it's not. It excludes a hurricane. It excludes epidemic.
It excludes epidemic, right.
That's what I heard.
So then
So therefore,
You still have other
first of all,
things.
the other was much more extended, although we don't know. So not to belabor the point, I'm awaiting to hear what Rod has to say.
Sure, of course.
wait, Dominic,
I need to go back just for a second,
Who's that as well?
okay? When I did this, my numbers, I didn't add my own vote.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
I did not add my own vote, so
Oh,
the motion carries. 3, 2,
I
and
take
1.
exception to that it's closed.
Well,
you're right.
yes, the motion carries, but you still have the issue of the chair. We present the vote to the chair, and he has to make a decision.
Okay, so you know my decision.
But the record is as the record is. Yes.
Regarding this building, if we weren't here today, the lights would be out, but the air conditioning would still be running.
right,
Yes.
So the building is functioning
they still have to
for, for the main reason of protecting itself from the
Yes.
reaction with
Mold,
with
yeah,
mold
of
and
course.
all of that. So there should be a return to the people, but not 100%.
Any feeling on how you would compute?
It's always the case.
Usage of the building.
Mitch?
Could we not think on the tail end next year, coming up with their budget and take it
This
out
year.
of the
This
budget
year.
that
Well,
they
yeah, whatever
proposed?
money was allocated for movies, for theater, all that stuff is gonna carry over, because it hasn't been used this year.
Right.
But the actual use of the facility, even though they've had electric and stuff on it to maintain the building, as far as actually resident use of the building, it has been 90%.
No, that's
Out.
why, no,
I
no,
mean,
I
we're
understand
just
that.
now utilizing the lobby, we're utilizing the ticket office, you know, for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
minimal amount. So 90% of the building, we're not using. They're using it for their staff, but for actual resident use,
There's tons of stuff
yeah,
that are not available to us.
Right.
right.
None of the courts, none of the pools. Well, maybe there's some
The sailing
restricted
side.
opening
On
on
the
the
pools
pools
restricted by
Yeah.
the state.
by government
Did
order.
you people get a message today from Eva?
Yeah, 2 pools were closed.
Two
Yes.
pools, Camden and
That's
South
what you
Compton,
heard, why don't you?
because people ripped the
Rip
covering
They
off.
water
ripped off the
fountain
plastic,
covers
I
off, they
saw
have them
that.
covered.
You know, I
and
sent her a note on that.
See what I
Can't that
mean?
be
These people-
dealt with plumbing somewhere back along the line?
Turn
Where
it
you can
off.
turn that off?
These
The
people,
only difference, they still defy the cover.
Just to be dicks.
That's right, you're right.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Barbara.
I just want to let the officers know, I hope you realize, because the theater is not costing us nothing. We don't pay into the theater. Only the people who go to the theater pay for the shows. No shows we weren't charged for, nobody went to a show.
Right.
So that's a
That's
draw.
moot, yeah.
Same thing Abby said with the movies. We don't pay for the movies. That's it.
As I said, that's gonna carry over to next year.
No, there's
'cause we
nothing to
didn't-
carry over though.
Yes, there is.
Isn't
No,
there
they
a,
want money.
hold on,
Excuse
isn't
me.
there a slug in the budget for movies?
Absolutely, it's $550 a week for a movie.
But she didn't use it.
So if we don't
So-
pay for it, it's gonna be
Oh,
next
for
year.
the
We're still-
movies.
we're still
Okay,
paying that
Money's
money.
gonna carry, it's gonna
For
be
the
money
movies,
saved.
but not for the shows.
That money will not be spent in this
Right.
year's budget.
But
It'll
not
be
the
carried
shows.
over to next
But
year's
not the
budget.
shows, just the movies.
The shows too.
We don't put money for the shows in the budget.
Who pays for it?
The people who go.
I know, but we're not, we
Okay,
still have
whatever,
to.
I don't know.
I,
You
if
might
I'm,
be
if
right.
I'm not
It's
mistaken,
still subsidized by
when,
us.
when she books those people, she has to make a commitment, a monetary commitment for them to sign a contract. So there's money that we've laid out.
Right.
It's all been canceled though, I'm trying to tell. Check it out,
Why
I
are we
don't
getting
know.
into
Okay.
this now?
All right,
You're right, should be an action.
Obviously, this will come up at operation.
At
operations.
Yeah.
But I think we need to hear what Monica has to
I
say.
think that's a
Okay,
good
I,
idea.
there is one issue as far as WPRF is concerned that needs to be addressed in the officers. And that's the fact that WPRF or EVA or whoever it is they're spending left and right. They're going
Of
over
course,
budget.
so there won't
on
be any,
some
there
things.
won't be any surplus.
There's, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If all the surplus that she's talking about giving back, if she's spending it, there is no surplus. So
I suspect
I think
not.
that's ridiculous. Almost $5,000 for railings to have them powder
Powder
coated.
coat.
I think that's, I never heard,
That should have
Anything-
come to
I had never heard
operation.
Yes,
anything
Should have
come
come
on
to
that.
this first.
That's true.
I never heard any of that coming. We're talking about 16 grand for a motherboard, for a proprietary.
It's
That
life
was an
safety,
emergency.
Oh, that's
Alright.
emergency.
life safety, fire
That's
detection,
emergency.
you can't. Whether it could be done cheaper, I don't know. That's a proprietary box.
Right, Siemens.
To Simmons.
What it would cost to depart to a new system, Dan says 60K, I don't believe it, but
there's certainly more than.
I just think that WPRF spending, which we pay for, needs to have a little more oversight.
yeah, well, it should have, all of that should come through operations.
That's right.
Donald,
Bob, I'm pretty sure that in WPRF budget, there's no specific budget line for painting the railings in the lobby. But I'm certain that there is a budget line for maintenance and repair. So is it, if she's spending out of a budget line that's already been approved, is this not any different than?
I guess my point on powder coating the rails, I don't know how many cases they have in here of people slipping down the steps because the rails weren't, they didn't have a sufficient coefficient of friction. My guess is it's zero. I don't know how operations would have voted on that. I would have voted no.
But would they have had the opportunity to vote on it at all?
They
Would
should
not-
have. My point is they should have. That's a major
for-
expense.
Isn't it anything over $2,500?
$4,800.
Huh?
28?
48.
4,800.
And what her cutoff is 25, isn't it?
Yes.
For-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with us.
So how come we didn't have a?
All right, guys, we're now in the middle of the operations committee.
Okay.
We could sit here all
I just
day.
think that needed to be.
But these
to
are
be brought
things
up
that-
in the officers.
Clearly will be brought up. I would suggest we wait till we hear from Monica, but certainly we should bring this stuff up. Anything else that needs to be,
No, I
Yes.
think we should go.
Executive board tomorrow?
No.
Cancel.
Cancel.
chance? All right, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
A motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Everyone take care. Oh, it is-
Very interesting.
We got Steve McDonald.
We got issues.
Did you hear me?
It's starting to even out.
I'm getting you for this. I've been working on it.
It's in
You
your hand.
can never satisfy everyone.
It was a tough 3 months.
Okay, oh, I know that. I know
You
that.
got the field.
I was,